think I have the feature to get the transcripts. So that must be you only, I guess.
Okay, I got it though.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Oh, sorry, it's recording. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining this focus group. Now, I'd like to start with advising everyone that this session will be recorded, since having a recorded session will be more helpful for us to more effectively review and analyze the information discussed and avoid missing any comments. Please let us know if you're not comfortable with recording or have any questions. This focus group has been formed to discuss your thoughts and views on rules and regulations accompanied by the global pandemic that we are currently experiencing. And we will be asking for your thoughts and opinions related to this subject. Since the pandemic has affected everyone in some way, we believe this topic is relevant to you all, and it can be helpful for us to better understand the effect of pandemic on our generation. So you might have relevant experiences yourself or know of someone who has experiences. Regardless, we won't be asking you to provide any identifiable information, and we would actually prefer if you use labels such as friend, coworker, family member, rather than giving names. So in order to protect the privacy of everyone. Um, we also want to ask you to please be in an environment that is quiet, wear your headphones, make sure you're alone, so privacy of other members in the group is protected. And again, we won't be asking you to disclose any personal or hurtful information. Um, Before we start, I want to briefly discuss the procedure as well. Cesar and I will be the moderator and co-moderator, and we will be asking the questions without giving any inputs ourselves. And Deniss and Gerald will be the note takers, and they will gather data. There are no right or wrong answers to your questions. Just feel free to speak your mind and give as much information as you're comfortable. And also, there are no orders for answering the questions. You can just voluntarily start by just giving your own response or opinion, or just continue by adding to information of other members' responses. Nonetheless, we would like to ask you to please be respectful of one another's opinions. Take turn when responding so you don't interrupt other speakers. And if you disagree with anyone's statements, please respectfully comment on that. And if you want to speak next, feel free to raise your hand with this Zoom feature, which is at the bottom of the screen. You can click on reaction and raise your hand, or you can just simply raise your hand on the camera, and you would know me or Cesar will call you next. And lastly, please make sure that you're unmute and your mic works well when you're talking. There any questions so far? No? Okay. So let's start the discussion. What do you think has caused the most controversy surrounding coronavirus and its regulations? Anyone wants to go first? All right, Alyssa.
I think the most controversy currently is regarding whether or not people should be having the vaccine, and vaccine mandates, like what's going on in New York right now. I know that's causing a lot of conflict amongst people.
Okay, thank you very much for your input, Alyssa. Does anyone have any thoughts or comments on what she said? Yes, Eve.
I agree with Alyssa about the controversy relating to whether or not to get the vaccine or not. And I also think there's controversy of whether or not to wear the mask, because at my job, that's a big thing. And people who has lost their job because of that, because of refusal to wear the mask. And although like the vaccine isn't mandatory for where I work, but people have quit just under the assumption like they're going to make it mandatory at some point. So I think that also adds to it.
Awesome contribution, Eve. Does anybody else have anything to say about this first initial question?
Yeah, I agree with what's been stated, though.
Okay, thank you very much, Jasmine. So I want to bring up an additional question kind of related to that, which is what information do you guys think makes this credible, or makes this, like, where do you get this information from to wear a mask and to get the vaccine? Do you feel like things have a certain, more things play a certain reason? Jasmine, I saw your hand raised.
I mean, I kind of base mine off of the CDC recommendations. My dad actually personally knows a doctor in the CDC, so that kind of also like adds to my reasoning. Like, these are the official people, mine as well. So that's where I kind of like get my information from and my level of reasoning. And then I think I also base it off of personal reasoning a bit, seeing how it's affected others and my family and my friends.
Okay, thank you very much, Jasmine. Does anyone have anything to comment on that?
I work in a hospital setting. I'm apart from the main hospital. I do work on a mental health unit, but I have friends that work at the hospital, and I've also personally been affected by COVID and had family members affected. So I think I get most of my information from my work setting and the mandates that are there and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you for your contribution, Alyssa. Talia, I saw your hand was raised as well.
Yeah, I think I also get my information besides from the CDC, like Jasmine mentioned. I think I also base myself off of what they say on the news. Every day we see how they report the new cases of COVID going on in each state, actually. So I think that's something that we have to look at, and how every time there's big events going on, there's a higher number of COVID cases in the area. So I base myself off of on that too.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for your contribution, Talia. I want to ask also for the group, do you guys feel that perhaps there are sources out there that are spreading misinformation about vaccination and masks?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know like exact sources, but I know there are just certain groups of people you can kind of find on social media. I feel like they're like, oh, I personally, the people I know that originally started that saying that coronavirus was fake are now coincidentally the same people that are like, oh, we still need to wear a mask, or oh, let's do some other type of special remedy, like just kind of crazy stuff. So I don't know like one specific unit, but I just know like different various types of people. Like, it's not a certain race, not a certain gender, not a certain religion. It's just like I will find random people within my life that are just like, oh, well, like this is actually the truth, or conspiracy theories and just craziness.
Okay, thank you for contributing, man. Alyssa, I saw your hand was raised, yes.
I've seen a lot of things on social media, specifically Instagram and Facebook. I've actually seen people that, I interact with on a daily basis, spreading misinformation and stuff on their stories and stuff. And also word of mouth, like with coworkers and stuff like that, they all have their opinions and state them freely. And, I'm not sure what their sources are, but I feel like a lot of misinformation is being spread through social media and word of mouth.
Okay, thank you for that contribution, Alyssa. Does anyone have anything else for that question? Yes, Steve.
I agree with Jasmine and Alyssa that this information is being spread. I see it on social media, but as with them both, like I never seen like an exact source. But just from my personal opinion, some of the stuff they say from like what I've seen just doesn't add up or make sense because there's no research to back it up.
Okay. Yes, Dalia.
I also agree with Alyssa. I think I've seen on Facebook groups that they kind of set up saying that COVID is a conspiracy or that it was made up. So that's something that I've come up with a lot. And you see a lot of people have joined into those groups thinking that COVID was just something made up to scare people.
Thank you for that contribution. So I would also want to ask, do you believe that social media is making it more difficult for certain mandates to be passed in protecting us from the coronavirus?
I say yes. I think social media makes a lot of things difficult now and easier. I think there's a lot of influence through social media, even not even corona related, but we've seen like social justice pressure to get, people arrested, or some people believe social media has influenced the outcome of big court cases, that we've seen recently. So I think that the way of social media affecting just society altogether, like, is already big enough. And then coronavirus specifically, because it sent us all home. So it was like the only way really people were getting information now literally was TV/social media. So I think that added fuel to the fire. And, that combination just kind of has let people run with it. Not that it's wrong. Like, yes, we all have our First Amendment and stuff, but I think it has also taken away people's skills of good and consumers of research, and backing up what they're hearing versus, oh yeah, Johnny, who I grew up playing like hopscotch with in 5th grade, said that he heard that coronavirus started in 1930. Like, let's kind of just, and then the flip side, I guess, would be like, CDC can put stuff out on social media,
Right.
so it's almost like a battle of who can spread their information more and then also quicker. So I think there's pros and cons, and then big factors for both sides.
Thank you for that. Does anyone have anything to comment?
I think it makes it more difficult because I feel like there's two stark sides right now. And what I see often is the sides arguing and pulling people toward this side or the other side rather than using reasoning and using good skills to collaborate and kind of throw out educated ideas on why I think this and why I think this. It's more like using insults and things like that. It's more like spun in a negative light. If you're on this side, you're over there and I want nothing to do with you, or I'm going to insult you, or whatever the case may be.
All right, thank you. Anybody else for that question? Okay. Oh, okay. Eve?
I think the social media makes it harder, and this goes along with Alyssa and Jasmine's sites, because now instead of communicating with each other effectively and doing your own research, even if it's for the coronavirus, as soon as they see it, they just spew whatever they find out, and if it's against, they just spew whatever they find out, and if you're not agreeing with them, then it's just like all hell breaks loose, and it's just like insult after insult. But this makes it harder, I believe.
Oh, thank you for your contribution.
Talia, you don't have any comments regarding this?
Yes, I think it might be different from others, but I don't know if it specifically makes it more difficult, but I do think that opinions are kind of swayed more because of what others think, or what they believe or base themselves off of what others have posted on social media. They start thinking about or believing something that someone else has posted. So I don't know if it's swayed specifically because of media, but I don't know. That's just me.
Okay, thank you for that contribution. So I want to ask, I think, one final question, which would be that, do you believe or would you believe that mandatory vaccination is the most appropriate measure to combat the coronavirus? Yes, Eve.
I wouldn't believe it's the most appropriate because there are people who are anti-vaxxers who've never gotten any type of vaccine and they've been fine thus far. And I also feel that when they say mandatory, it's kind of like, at least my personal opinion, taking away their rights because there are some people for religious purposes that don't get vaccines or for whatever reason that they have that don't get it. And although cases like they rise and then they go down, but I feel like when they're going down for the people who don't get the vaccine, it's not really much of an effect, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you for that contribution, Eve.
I don't think it's the most appropriate either. I mean, we see what's going on right now in New York where they're mandating healthcare workers to get the vaccine, and if not, they're going to lay them off or whatever the case may be. And I think that makes people suffer. It makes patients suffer within the hospitals and stuff because the hospitals are already so short-staffed because of what's going on. So to take more workers away, I think is not a good idea. Also, I feel like, there hasn't been enough research or research hasn't been done for a long enough period of time. For example, I have a family member who is concerned about childbirth and her chances of getting pregnant. And, I don't blame her for that concern. I don't think enough research has been done, and I don't think it's been done over a long enough period of time.
All right, thank you.
I'm going to disagree.
Okay.
First, I'll say I think it's appropriate if we choose not to do a shutdown. I think that is the root of all the issue. The central issue, if we would have done a shutdown, that would have possibly given more time for vaccination to have been studied. We probably would not even be having this question because people wouldn't be in an uproar or wouldn't really be a concern. It'd be like, okay, by this date, we should have it all studied and this is when. But instead, I feel like our country and some other countries, but obviously we live in this one, we never did a full shutdown versus other countries we've seen, Japan and China, where it originally started, they fully shut down. Do I agree with how they did it? Leaving dead bodies in homes? No, I don't want all that, but they took necessary precautions. And I feel as if in this country, we were such in an uproar of having to stay home that, okay, well, if you want to go back outside and back to real life, you've got to make some type of sacrifice. We're not having a mask mandate. Okay, well, if you don't want to be mandated to make there needs to be a mandate for something. So I will say the vaccine mandate is appropriate if we're not going to have a mandated strict shutdown countrywide, or you just can't cross borders, or we have our mask mandates back. We've got to figure out some type of sacrifice to actually stop it. Because in reality, I agree with Eve, there are some religions where people have never gotten vaccinated. And I think if you are one of those people who have never gotten a vaccination, no, you should not be mandated. Versus my family, my mom had been vaccinated since I was an infant. I do not feel like it is right for me now to be like, well, you can't tell me to get vaccinated because I had to get vaccinated to go to college. I feel like some people will try to counter that and say, well, as a child, I didn't have a choice. But I think if you went to college, you did have a choice. You get to choose if you want to go to college or not. And you chose to then get those necessary vaccinations to be on college campuses. So I think with that, then possibly bringing a mandate to certain places, yes, that it'll restrict some people. I never really thought of how Alyssa said it. I personally was in favor of people in hospitals or medical fields, you should have to get vaccinated. but then I did not know about what's going on in New York. And I do agree, like, man, okay, is it right then to not, to take away workers that we absolutely need now? I personally had never thought of it that way. But then I also think, well, if the vaccine is mandated, how many of those workers might actually come back to work? And it could go either way. It could be, hey, they still might not come back, or hey, a flood goes back. So, I mean, I think now you guys have definitely given me another point of view for sure on whether it is appropriate, but my personal reasoning is yes with the circumstances, though.
You've given me another point of view as well, because I do feel like there needs to be some sort of sacrifice. And while I do think the vaccine would be ideal, I don't think it's feasible. So there needs to be some other sacrifice in place in order for us to get through this and rise above it. So.
Okay. Thank you, Alyssa.
May I, Alyssa, since you said sacrifice, can you clarify on what type of sacrifice you're talking about?
Well, I do think that, there's some rights being revoked, I guess, when you mandate a vaccine. I think the more appropriate sacrifice would be a mask mandate and for everyone to wear their masks. But I too think that's ideal, but not feasible, just because of everyone's differing opinions and everyone's, strong opinions. And, some people, they're just not going to be forced to do something. And unfortunately, that's where we're at. So it's like a sacrifice has to be made, but what's it going to be? What's going to be feasible? What are we going to be able to do?
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, Alyssa. Natalia?
I agree with the vaccine mandate. I just don't agree with having or setting a certain timeline like we have had so far. They thought that in June or July, almost 50% of the population would have the vaccine. I don't think we should set that timeline or that due date, because it's not reasonable. Like Jasmine, I think, mentioned, we don't have proper research of whether if it's effective and if it'll have any long-term effects. I think I've heard that in order to know that about a vaccination, and we need to at least study it for 7 years at least. So I think that we should have everyone receive the vaccine, but not make everyone get it so quickly.
Okay. Thank you, Thalia. So I have a scenario to close things off with what we've discussed in mind. My scenario would be that you are applying for a position at a job that you are very interested in, and they required proof of vaccination before you were hired. Would this likely affect whether or not you continued the application process?
No, not for me, because I am vaccinated, so it wouldn't bother me.
Okay, thank you, Jasmine. Eve, I saw your hand was raised.
Well, I'm not vaccinated as of yet, but this is like in the application of like where the job is guaranteed.
Yep. The only thing that's standing in your way from you and getting this position would be the vaccination and showing proof of it.
Well, and that if it's a guaranteed job and a job that I really want, then yeah, I would get the vaccine for that job.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Delia.
I personally wouldn't have a problem with it because I am vaccinated already. Plus, I think that it's okay for them to want to know that every person in the staff will be safe, and every person I come in contact with. So I wouldn't have a problem with proving that I received the vaccine.
Okay. Thank you, Talia. And Alyssa?
I agree with Dahlia. I think it would be a precaution I would be fond of that the company is taking. So it would incline me more to want to be a part of that team.
So for you, it would actually benefit the application that they're taking that into consideration.
Yes. It
Okay,
would.
thank you. So this is all that I really have for you as a focus group. I think we got some very great information, and I want to thank each of you for your candor and for speaking very, very politely to one another, even though we did have some differing views. But either way, I'm very thankful to you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.